Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are having a great Wednesday. I'd like to thank you for joining us on today's webinar, Growing Your Business Through Mobile Opportunities. Today's webinar is sponsored by Dahua Technology USA, and in today's session, we'll learn how to maximize the benefits of an intelligent, fully integrated mobile security solution from end to end and how it can grow your business. I'm Andrea Morgan, ESA's Marcom Specialist, and I'll facilitate today's webinar. Before we get started, let's cover a few housekeeping rules. First, all callers will be muted for the duration of this webinar. At any time, feel free to ask a question by clicking into that section of your control panel. We'll ensure we reserve some time at the end of the webinar for a question and answer session with our speakers. A recording of this webinar will be made available in the resource library on esaweb.org at the end of today. Without further ado, I'm very excited to introduce to you today's speakers, Jake Simarata and Steve Wilbur. Jake is a National Business Development Enterprise Sales Manager at Dahua Technology. With more than 10 years of industry experience, Jake has provided service to integrators, manufacturers, and end users in the physical security market. He has worked with major federal, state, and municipal government agencies, as well as enterprise end users in the private sector. Jake's wide array of professional skills and knowledge of the physical security industry make him a valuable asset to Dahua Technology USA. Steve is the training manager at Dahua Technology USA, a leading manufacturer of total security solutions for the North American market. Prior to joining Dahua USA, Steve worked exclusively in the manufacturing side of the video surveillance industry. He has over 20 years of experience in training, sales, marketing, and product management. Steve has authored numerous articles for security magazines and has been a speaker at numerous industry expositions. Thank you for joining us today. Jake, I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all our West Coasters on the call, and good afternoon to the East Coasters. Hope everyone's having a good day. So very excited to be speaking with everyone today about the new mobile product offering that Dahua has brought into the North America portfolio. And while we're going through the information today, I want everyone to be thinking about how these products are going to get a lot of installers, a lot of companies outside of the typical security installations and applications, and open the door to some really unique and sort of out of the ordinary integration opportunities and capabilities that are out there. So in addition to the vehicle installs that all of these products are traditionally used for and are definitely marketed towards, that being things like the police cars and school buses and public transit buses, not to forget mentioning the commercial trucking fleets. But these are also products that can be used in static installations for remote areas where communications and connectivity is an issue or impossibility, and or for temporary deployments where setting up and running cable and developing infrastructure for a temporary project like a construction site may not be cost effective, and that way a mobile temporary or semi-permanent solution could be the best fit. So really, as we get through some of this stuff, to kind of keep thinking about how these products can be used just outside of the typical installations, to help expand your business and to help tap into new vertical markets. So getting right into the fleet management portion, I'll start by giving a small introduction to our DSS server. So the mobile solution that Dahua is offering not only includes all the hardware components like cameras and recorders that would go onto a vehicle, we also provide the physical server that's used to manage the enterprise software for the solution. So DSS is used with the mobile recorders. It's scalable, and we're going to get into a lot of the different feature sets. But once again, this is not just a video management software, video management platform tool. This is a enterprise solution that is really used for a lot of things outside of just the cameras, and for fleet management, dispatchers and operational professionals using GPS reporting, geofencing, and all these different functionalities that the DSS server and the software that comes with it can provide. So here's a general layout, and as I said a moment ago, we are going to get a little bit deeper into the weeds with my colleague Steve later on in the presentation, but this is a general look at what the solution could be for a bus, for example, where you've got hardware components such as audio devices, cameras, maybe even monitors, UPS devices, all fixed and installed on the vehicle itself, whether it be interior or exterior cameras, potentially for reverse cams. Those devices on the bus can communicate in real time over cellular networks with 4G enabled mobile NVRs. And while the 4G connectivity gives the solution real-time advantages for monitoring and managing their operations, the system is also set up to do a wireless offload via the Wi-Fi connection if potentially needed. And the reason why we do that is while 4G technology does give us a lot of possibilities, it also can raise the price on using too much data for the customers and the solution. So while selling this, because there is a cellular component, the customer base needs to be mindful of not just what the technology can do, but how it's best to use the technology. So we have a wireless offload capability that would use Wi-Fi instead of 4G. Once again, just getting into the different variations of how these systems are set up. So the DSS platform can be set up with pretty much any number of devices. So it's a very scalable solution for customers. Customers can start out, even if they have a larger fleet of a few hundred vehicles, they can start out with, half a dozen or however many they can afford, and it can slowly be scaled. If they increase their fleet size over the next 10 years to, triple or quadruple, the DSS devices can be set up in a master-slave configuration to accommodate virtually any number of mobile assets that might be a part of the solution for fleet monitoring and tracking. I'll also mention that the DSS platform is available on the mobile app as well as software clients or client software for download. Oops, jumped ahead too quick. So our e-mapping function is something that a lot of commercial charters find very helpful and very informative. And keep in mind, a lot of these customers might not have cameras existing on their fleet, but some of them are already using different technologies like GPS to help them manage their day-to-day operations. The Dahua mobile solution does everything that a fleet tracking GPS solution does, in addition to adding cameras and other components and other functionality. So this can give people real-time locations of their fleet. They can set the system to alert on different times, depending on what a designed route is and if somebody deviates from that route. They have the ability, obviously, to see it in real time. Now, we do have a stripped down version that is just a local solution for the customer base that maybe want to do real-time monitoring, but the cellular costs associated might not make it a possibility immediate. So, once again, it is a scalable solution based on the functionality of it. But for the customers that do have that real-time monitoring capabilities and do have that cellular 4G connectivity, you can set up geofencing zones. So a dispatcher can automatically be alerted if one of their vehicles travels into a restricted zone or a high-risk zone, for example. We've done some pilots south of the border that were basically the interest came due to some fear of kidnapping in the area. So I assume none of us are going to have customers here in North America. They're going to have those fears. But commercial trucking companies and delivery companies do have restricted zones. There are certain roads and areas where commercial trucks aren't allowed to travel on. So an operational individual at one of these companies would want to be notified if their drivers are driving in an area where either the vehicle is restricted or it's unsafe for individuals that are traveling. The historic route display, and once again, all of this not only can be seen in real time, but the DSS and mobile platform gives customers and gives your end users the ability to pull reports. One classic example that we hear a lot is shuttle companies that get complaints throughout the day. Oh, the bus wasn't here when we were expecting it, or your driver was late and didn't show up until this time. Traditionally, it's a he said, she said conversation between the driver and the dispatcher. This technology will assist, obviously, and give the management of a shuttle company the visibility to go back in time and say, no, that individual, that customer was not correct, and our driver was where they were supposed to be when they were supposed to be there, or obviously give you the information if they were not. So this stuff can be, if it's not for a customer who has 24/7 dispatcher or has an operational setup where they're managing this stuff in real time, the value of the historical route display and the reporting that can be pulled is also very helpful in a lot of the conversations that we've had with different customers. So why mobile recorders, and why are we not just putting standard recording devices and standard cameras onto vehicles? As most of you can imagine, the mobile environment is rugged. There are, tens of thousands of potholes that the average city bus or school bus hits on an annual basis. And the G sensor and the mobile NVR in the Dahua products was set up to withstand a lot of the issues that come from a mobile environment and a vehicle running up and down the road. So we'll get into more specifics about how the recording can be set up. We do offer different hard drive options, solid state. We do offer micro SD edge recording on some models as well. So we'll get into that a little bit later on. Panic button is another example of one of the components that we have for this solution that is outside of the traditional cameras and recorders. This can also give the driver visibility of the system itself. So if for some reason the GPS went offline, or for some reason the camera stopped recording, they'd have LED indicator lights letting them know what was going on. And obviously the panic button can be used to alert their office or their dispatch to log into the camera that there's an issue or a problem going on. It can also be used in some applications for a driver to just basically flag an incident, so that at the end of the day they can say, there was something that happened on the road, I got cut off by another driver, and this is how I just sort of tagged the event in real time so it could be looked at later on down the road. The solution also features two-way audio communication. We have a few different options for this. Once again, we'll get into that a little bit later. But it's all surrounding this bigger solution concept where we're giving the driver, as well as the colleagues of the drivers that are back at a corporate location, the ability to communicate in real time and to really go back and forth no matter what the circumstance is, easily and in a safe way. And we've got a version that's a push to talk, and we've got one that's completely hands-free. Video offloading I mentioned a little bit earlier, but basically if we do have a customer that's utilizing a 4G real-time solution and they don't want to and shouldn't pay cellular companies to offload that data at the end of the day, most of our customers, and this speaks to school buses, municipal fleets, and commercial trucking fleets, the majority of our customers have depot yards or parking areas where the majority of their fleets or stays overnight. And for those circumstances and those applications, we're able to utilize a wireless bridge, also offered by Dahua, also offered with a 5-year warranty. And that wireless bridge can communicate with the Wi-Fi within the mobile recorder to offload any events or any data from the day. And just like with any other recorder, we recommend recording just on motion like we would on some fixed applications isn't going to cut it in a mobile environment, because literally if you have a camera recording on motion on a bus, it's going to be going 24/7, or at least for the length of time that the bus is in operation. So the video offloading gives customers the ability to offload the data wirelessly and without using any cellular data fees. The option to swap out physical hard drives is also a possibility. Once again, we've got a lot of different variations of what this solution can look like, scalable based on functionality and based on the size of the rollout. So with all that being said, I'm going to hand off to my colleague Steve, and he's going to get into a little bit more detail on the mobile solution component going into our discussion.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jake. I appreciate that. So now what we'll do is talk about the individual components that are available from Dahua in regards to the mobile solution. And of course, any mobile solution wouldn't be complete without a variety of, recording devices. And on the NVR side of things, so if you want to record IP-based cameras, we've got a couple of different models. They basically boil down to 4 or 8 channel systems. And as Jake mentioned, it does have a removable hard drive caddy, which could hold up to 2 storage devices, whether they be hard drives or SSDs. And they're also available in a couple of different variations. You can choose whether or not you want RJ45 or M12 connectors to the cameras, and we'll talk a little bit about the specifics on the next slide. But we also have the option of whether or not to include Wi-Fi and cellular communications. So this is one of the differentiations here. As Jake mentioned, for static applications, you probably don't need the Wi-Fi and cellular, but certainly for fleet management, you would want to have those options. Okay, hopefully it will switch to the next slide here. I'm having a slight problem. Let's see if, okay. All right, there we go. So here you can see the 2 different types of connectors that we have. So with the RJ45 option, it's just like a regular, office-based NVR, where you've got, PoE coming out of those ports, and that will work with any Dahua PoE IP camera. And then we also have M12 connector options, and these are also known as aviation connectors. And this is a much more rugged solution, because after you plug it in, it also twist locks. So this is certainly more resilient to vibration and movement. I apologize, my computer is a little slow here, so maybe, okay, there we go. So one of the other options besides an NVR-based recorder is we have a CVR, which is our high-definition analog recorder. And this is for use with our HD CVI cameras. So this will give you high definition over an analog connection. And as you can see, we still have the 4 or 8 channel variations, but they're all going to use the M12 connector type. With the 4 channel variant, you can get it with or without Wi-Fi and cellular. So regardless of the type of recorder that you get, they're all going to share some common features. And one thing to note is that these recorders are optimized for these mobile applications, so they have a very substantial suspension system for the recording media itself. And as mentioned, they'll all be able to provide power to the cameras through the connections provided, either via that RJ45 or M12 connector. There's also a power delay circuitry, which is important in a fleet application when you want to park the vehicle back at a central depot and then leave the electronics running when the engine is off so that you can facilitate transfer of video data wirelessly to the servers at the depot. They also have GPS integrated, so that will record the position and time to the recording. There's that G sensor, which is going to measure G forces, and that's important because if the vehicle hits a pothole and you've got a hard drive based system, the impact may be strong enough that it could disrupt the recording to the hard drive. So in that case, we support local SD cards that are installed. So if the G sensor goes off, it will force recording to the SD card momentarily, and also has about a 5-second pre-alarm so that you really won't miss any of the events. And the G sensor is also important because in the case where there's maybe an impact or accident, that will immediately be reported to the central station. So here's kind of a quick look at the IP camera options that we have. And all of these are optimized for these rugged, they have a ruggedized enclosure that they have to offer. And the first two, your fisheye cameras and your dome cameras, are probably best used on the interior of the camera. The third one there, which is the football camera, that's really designed for use on the outside of, say, a bus or a truck, where the tapered part faces towards the front. And this design is great for situations where the vehicle might hit up against tree branches or something like that, and it won't catch the camera, or it'll be much less likely to damage it in any way. So that's what that's optimized for. And we also have a wedge camera there that you see on the last part. And that's really great for interior spaces where you want to see very, up close. So that's great for, say, a school bus where you want to see, you mount it towards the front, looking towards the back. Now, we also have some PTZ options, which would probably be best used if you placed it on the top of the vehicle towards the front, and therefore we have an indoor version there that you see in that first column. And then there's also an outdoor PTZ, which could be mounted on the outside of the vehicle. For the analog side of things, we've got a number of different options here. The first two are the wedge cameras, which once again are great for the interior of a bus looking backwards. The third item there is probably best used in front of the driver, close to the windshield, kind of a dash cam type of an application. And then the following two, we have a couple of different eyeball cameras, which once again are great for the interior part looking towards the rear. And then the last two are some other forms of dash cams. The second to the last unit there is actually double lens, so they actually have dual imagers. So one faces outside through the windshield, and then the other one faces towards the interior of the vehicle. We've touched a bit on some of the other accessories that help complete this package. So there's this panic button enclosure, which does more than just function as kind of a panic button for the driver. And certainly that's very important in a school bus or municipal bus application. If there's something that the driver wants to alert the central station about, they just press that button. It can also be reconfigured so as to mark the video for whatever reason. And there's a number of status LEDs that will tell the driver that critical functions of the system are operational, like, it's recording, that there's, cellular connectivity, that sort of thing. Now, if This, your application requires that the driver be able to view the system. We have a small 7-inch LCD monitor that can be mounted close to the driver. We've got a couple of different options for a handheld two-way talk handset for the driver. And if you want to physically secure the recorder, we also have a lockable enclosure box that's available. And then lastly, the last two options are a couple of different extension cables for either IP cameras or analog cameras in a variety of distances. Now, as mentioned, the recorders can support different types of recording media, and the two major ones are, hard drives, which are of course mechanical, and then we also have some solid-state drives available. So, which one is best? Well, that's something that's probably best discussed with your system integrator or the systems group, which we have here at Dahua, and they can help determine which is the best one for your needs. I would say, in general, if the vehicle is going to be traveling over areas where there's, very rough roads and a lot of potholes, probably the hard drive isn't going to be the best solution because it might interrupt the recording. But one thing to note on the solid-state drives is that, they do have a finite number of write cycles. So you just need to determine, which is best for your application. Also, as mentioned, if you're going to use the G-sensor capabilities, it's good to add the SD card so as to, record if there's an impact for redundancy. And there's also a special shroud that we have for the wedge camera. So this provides a similar protection that you get from that football camera. And lastly, there's a compact keyboard. So if the driver in whatever application you're looking at wants to be able to control that PTZ, then there's this small keyboard PTZ controller. So that covers the hardware portion of this, and I would like to mention that all of the products that we just discussed are available in our portfolio to make a complete system for you. So now I'll pass this over to Jake, who will have some insights in regards to some specific applications that this product is great for.
Great, thank you very much, Steve. So this is some exciting stuff here coming up. I want to give everybody an idea of who's actually going to buy this stuff, and more importantly, why they need it. Sure. Okay, great. So first, let me go over a few, and we mentioned this at the beginning, that there could be some static installation examples where these products could help you expand your integration capabilities and expand the types of products and solutions that you can deliver outside of even a mobile or vehicle type environment. So a couple of things I've come across in my career in selling security systems in remote or areas with complications. So parks, we've seen a lot of opportunities where, running fiber or running cable in a public park is just not going to be within the budget of certain municipalities. And if they can put something out that has a 4G backbone for communications to record and keep the community safe, that's sometimes a much better bet and a better option for the resources and funds that they have available. We've seen opportunities where customers are looking to put cameras in the middle of nowhere to monitor wildfire and other wildlife reserves. We've even gotten applications where they needed a 4G type application and the camera for monitoring animals at the zoo, and didn't have the ability or permission to run cable, had a short-term moment or a period of time where they actually needed and wanted those because it was a traveling exhibit. So different things like this. Also sporting fields in higher ed and K through 12 schools where they want to have visibility either for security reasons or for promotional reasons, at a remote area where they've got football games and other student activities going on. So exciting stuff, interesting stuff. Really, a lot of times when there's no communications available, a mobile NVR and a camera from Dahua may be the best bet for a customer, or may at least be something that they should be considering. So some temporary type static deployments could be, and we've had requests from different municipalities all over the U.S. who are looking to combat illegal dumping in their neighborhoods. And illegal dumping is a big one, and I want to encourage everyone to ask around about it in your local regions, because this is one where there's an ROI involved. And a lot of local politicians, like in the Los Angeles area, for example, they campaign on fighting and combating illegal dumping. And this is the type of product and solution that can be deployed to sit in an alleyway or sit in a bait car to capture a construction company dumping debris illegally. Construction industry is a great example where there are some construction projects for the water and wastewater industry where they might only be on site for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, fixing a water main break or some other issue at a remote site. And they want to have cameras, they have valuable assets that are sitting on site, but they don't have the money, resources, or time to install and deinstall a fixed camera solution. So these are all scenarios, I think, that my guess is everyone on this call has come across something like this at one point in their career in selling security solutions. And I just want to make sure everyone remembers that this mobile solution can be repurposed at a very cost-effective deliverable for these types of applications. And of course, one trending topic that's been on the minds of most Americans for many, many months and years now is the officer safety, police safety, and using technology to assist, not to replace, but to assist police officers and to be a force multiplier for public safety divisions. I've done a lot of work with law enforcement in my career who were looking to have mobile portable systems for special events and or for creating a dragnet when they didn't have the resources to have complete coverage of their downtown area or their campus or whatever the end user site may be. Here's another example, is a marine installation. So imagine a owner of a couple dozen fishing boats and wanting to not only have better visibility of what their fleet is doing, but also have better communications for the individuals that have their assets out on the water. So we've also discussed some other marine applications were going to be for monitoring remote fuel piers, to basically have a surveillance system out in the middle of nowhere on a fuel pier, just so that there was visibility of what was going on, who was coming in, and there was no other way of accomplishing it without a 4G ruggedized camera solution. Also, a lot of U.S. ports of entry and critical infrastructure sites where power and communications may not be in place, these mobile products can be deployed with off-grid power, whether it be a solar array or a fuel cell battery, to be able to run virtually anywhere. So very cool stuff, and a lot of applications outside of just the marine one, but we only have so much time. So some of the municipal government installations that we've come across, bait cars, that's been both for the illegal dumping thing I mentioned earlier, but also for just trying to catch criminals in bad crime areas with different sting operations. We have had interest from municipal Department of Public Works fleets and operations vehicles, water department, who, every time there's a water main break, they send out operations guys at 2, 3 in the morning to survey the scene and they're looking to have real-time visibility so that the higher-ups who aren't in the field but are back at headquarters can see what's going on and can have all the information that some of their colleagues in the field have to be making some of the decisions of how they want to respond to an incident or an event. Obviously, we're all familiar that the majority of police cars out there today have dash cams in there for not only the officer safety, but for the individuals that they are protecting in society's safety. We have a very competitive system that can go spec for spec with the leading manufacturer in the public safety police car space. So if you run across opportunities in that, please feel free to get your local Dahua sales rep involved. They are educated on the value and comparison we have to some of the leading manufacturers that sell into that police market. K through 12 school buses, higher ed campus shuttle buses, obviously, big requests coming in from there. A lot of that has to do, and the funny thing with schools is typically the school's always excited. There's some navigating and understanding who actually owns the buses. Typically a bus consortium is in control, not the actual school, but the school is in a position of power a lot of the time. So if any of you do have some ideas or some opportunities, feel free to reach out, and myself included. I've done a number of these conversations with end users and have started to really kind of develop what their requirements are and what the drivers are in their world. And it's, it's great stuff. It's like, we're worried about the drivers, but we're going to tell the drivers that we're doing it so we can watch the kids. We'll tell the parents we're doing it to watch the drivers. So there's normally a PR spin to the faculty, as well as a different PR spin to the parents, but it's got a lot of different interests. Medical marijuana transport was another interesting one that came across, and the one I knew about was in the state of Illinois. Other states might be different, but there was a requirement for having visibility for the delivery from a cultivation center to a dispensary. So a lot of interesting stuff coming up there. Now, for the commercial vehicle examples, typically the driver is not security. The driver is to mitigate liability and risk and to lower all that. So the exciting thing, in my opinion, is now we're outside of just working with a security budget. Now we're working with an operations budget, maybe a marketing budget. And the last commercial fleet and end user that I was engaged with actually was able to lower their insurance premium by $50,000 for putting this Dahua mobile solution on a fleet of 50 heavy trucks, which is a dump truck. So a small investment in our solution and in the equipment was able to see an immediate ROI over the less than 12 months time in the money they saved with their insurance premiums. That's going to be the big driver for a lot of these commercial vehicles. So keep that in the backs of your mind and let me know and let other Dahua staff know if we can be of assistance in helping educate and explain that to the customers that you're in conversation with. And we got into the vehicle installation examples here with my colleague Naveed. I'm going to pass over. Naveed is our solutions team expert, and we'll be taking it from here.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. So I'm just going to discuss two solutions that were of interest. Obviously, we have dealt with quite a few projects, but I think these two will be of interest to you guys. So first one was for a school bus project in Dubai. So some of the requirements for this project was that obviously the management people wanted to make sure that they had evidence for incidents and make sure that the students and the driver were obviously safe. The other thing that needed to be made sure was that there were no students left behind. There were a couple of incidences where children fell asleep on a bus and they got locked in, and while the bus returned to the once the bus returned to the depot. They also needed to have the ability to be able to determine the location of the bus to make sure that it was on schedule and on time, and obviously make sure what the speed of the vehicle was so that the driver was not over speeding. So scale-wise, we had one management center where we were using multiple DSS platforms to be able to manage over 2,000 mobile NVRs and 1,600 cameras. So basically, this is an example as to how the cameras and the solution was basically deployed. So we had cameras like the football cameras that were mentioned by my colleague earlier on, installed outside to be able to give a low-profile view and be able to give a better situational awareness of each side of the vehicle. And obviously, we had internal cameras as well. We also had an LED indicator, the panic button indicator, installed inside next to the bus driver. So that was basically to keep the bus driver aware as to where what the function of the unit was, because the mobile recorder was installed in a secure location so that it could not be easily reached by children or by the driver themselves. Some of the unique components of this were that we had actually two PIR sensors, or motion sensors, installed in the vehicle, which you can see highlighted over here. We also had a reader installed, a card reader. So basically what the card reader was doing was when the students were actually entering the bus, they would swipe their card onto this reader. This would basically register that the student was actually now on board the bus. And using a third-party customized application, that notification was sent to the parent to let the parent know that now their student or their child is now on the bus. So that required a slight customization on the firmware, but totally possible to do. The other thing that we assured to make sure that no child was left behind was having a check button on the back of the vehicle. So what the responsibility of the driver was that once they had completed their route and they were back at their bus depot, the driver actually had to switch off the vehicle and walk to the back of the vehicle and press the check button. So once they press the check button, that will send an automatic notification to the management platform, the DSS platform, to let the people know that this vehicle is now offline. And also, it would automatically activate the motion sensors. So basically what this did was that because the driver had to walk to the back of the bus, they actually had to, obviously observe the seats were empty and such. And the motion sensor were basically there that in case they were not observant and they left, if once a child woke up or was starting to move, the motion sensor would trigger the recorder and the management platform would once again be notified that there is somebody inside the vehicle. This would also add an element of security to the bus as well, because now if the bus was vandalized or somebody broke into it outside of normal hours, they would also be aware of that their asset is under danger. Next slide, please. Sorry. Okay, so there we go. The next project that I wanted to discuss is for a public transport solution. So once again, it was a reasonably large installation. They had over 300 mobile recorders and approximately 1,300 cameras for a public transport system in Italy. Now, with a public transport system, obviously one of the biggest requirements was to be able to make sure that the vehicle is going in the correct designations and routes. So the GPS sensing was a feature that they used to make sure that the vehicle did not deviate from the location. And they were also able to use the breadcrumb or the tracking capability to make sure that the buses were making their designated stops on schedule. The other unique requirement for them was to be able to also remotely be able to access their the solution, the DSS platform, from a smartphone or tablet. So we had an app specifically designed for this so that they could view live cameras as well as basically look up the video on an e-map to see what the location of each vehicle was and basically be able to determine that everything was okay. The other unique requirement that they had was to be able to use the emergency button. So the emergency button, obviously, in a public transport solution is quite an important feature. If there is an incident on board the bus or outside of the bus, the emergency button would be pressed so that the management platform or the DSS platform in this case would be notified immediately. Now, they did have installed in there an audio connection as well with the push to talk, so that the driver could have a live conversation with their management center and basically be able to provide them with a real-time update. So it was basically a complete turnkey solution for them, providing all the products that they needed by using Dahua proprietary products. So what kind of things you would be basically looking for any kind of mobile solution is that, obviously is the cameras. So many of our competitors, I'm sure you will know, offer 2 megapixel cameras, but with ours, we can go up to 6 megapixel cameras as well. For example, our fisheye camera can do 6 megapixels for NVR solutions. One of the biggest things also that we can provide is a unified management platform. Basically, a single platform can handle multiple devices, and we can integrate not only the cameras and the recorders, but also integrate audio capability and get all the reports and such from the vehicles also. Also, what is unique about Dahua is that we don't actually charge for any kind of licensing fees. Once you purchase the product, any updates from the software for that specific product are provided free of charge. So there's no annual recurring fees and such that you have to pay to stay current. Also, we have obviously a robust management solution. Our recorders and such are designed to be able to handle the rigors of the environment, be that vibration over rough terrain, or even temperature variations due to hot and cold weather. And as my colleagues mentioned, we are an expandable solution. So if a customer has a need for, say, for example, starting off with, let's say, 5 or 6 cameras or 5 or 6 recorders, and their needs grow as their time goes by, they can obviously be confident that with Dahua products they can expand. So one of our DSS management platforms can manage up to, say, for example, 500 IP devices. So if they have a need for going above that, obviously you can add more and more DSS platforms to go with it to have as sub-servers. And for accessories, as we mentioned, we have an extensive array of accessories that can basically manage most situations, be that the panic button or the secure casing or even the push-to-talk devices. And now I basically open the floor to some questions. Jake or Steve?
All right, thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation. Callers, we hope you found this content to be informative. This is the portion of the webinar where we open it up for questions and answers. So the first question that I see is not particularly a question, but an attendee is inquiring about whether or not the mobile NVR products are on the website.
I'm not sure, actually. I need to check the website, but they are recently pulled into our portfolio. So they are in the system of, I believe, all of the distributors, national distributors that we work with. So if it's not on the website, it should be there soon to make sure we get you some information offline in regards to that. But all of these products have been preloaded into the systems with our distributors, so you should be able to get information, pricing, and spec sheets on this stuff. If not on the Dahua website today, it'll be there soon, and your distributors and local sales contacts can help get that information to you as well.
Just to add to Jake, these products are available on the Dahua USA website. Under the product section, there's a tab for mobile, where we categorize network IP solutions as well as the HDC VR recorders as well.
Awesome. Another question. You mentioned 3G and 4G providers. What providers specifically are supported through this offering?
At
Well,
present,
currently,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, currently today, we have tested and used the product on AT&T in the U.S. Our new version of mobile NVRs that are available for order, I can't quote you on what the lead time is on it, but the new line of mobile NVRs will also work with the Verizon networks. And I know for our Canadian friends up north, we've also tested the mobile NVRs on the Rogers network, the GSM Rogers network, and been successful. Naveed, you wanted to add to that?
No, I was just going to say the exact same thing as what you were saying. So yeah, you're good.
Okay.
And I will also mention, excuse me, one more thing. One thing I will mention too is we had some opportunities that were brought to us from a Dahua partner, but that had originated through a relationship at a cellular provider who was not just mentioned by myself. In those circumstances, if there's a T-Mobile or a Sprint end user who really wants to maintain with their carrier, we've done pilots and we do have the potential ability to use a third-party like MiFi device or a 4G hotspot from a cellular provider like Sprint or T-Mobile and incorporate that with all of the Dahua products that were mentioned in this. And that is specific to opportunities where the SIM card is not going to work or has not been approved by our mobile NVR. So long way of saying, no matter what the cellular provider is, we're going to find a way to make it work. But as far as the SIMs that work within the mobile recorders, AT&T and Verizon for the US.
Awesome. Next question is, would the mobile DVR NVR be powered by the current battery system, or will this be separate?
This can be handled differently depending on the vehicle that it's going into and the installation requirements. Steve, Naveed, do you want to add to that at all?
Okay, well, the device can basically be powered from the vehicle's battery. Now, if you wish to have a longer power delay capability or longer power delay function, you can obviously add a secondary battery, like a deep cycle battery, to let the device run for a prolonged time. For majority of cases, say for example, it's in a let's say a truck or a school bus, using the onboard battery is more than adequate to be run for a prolonged period of time, even after the power delay, even if the power delay function is active. Say for example, 20-30 minutes, it should be perfectly fine. Anything above that, then you know, it is ideally recommended to have a backup battery to go with it.
Okay, let's try one more question. What sort of reports can you pull from the vehicle?
I'm going to hand this one over to my colleague Naveed, because he can speak to the reporting piece much better than myself. Naveed, do you want to fill everyone in on the reporting capabilities?
Sure. So basically, we can download that data for each specific vehicle. So we can download data as to, you know, in a CSV format, which can obviously be open in Excel, as to, you know, vehicle location, longitude, latitude-wise, what the speed was, and other functions like, you know, how often it stopped, and so on. There's a plethora of information that you can download from the device. So yeah, I mean, it can all be downloaded in a CSV format, and then, you know, you can use whatever tools you wish to present it in a more nicer graphical format if needed.
We actually got one more question. What happens when the vehicle is turned off if the cameras are powered by the vehicle's battery?
Great story here, and this is a funny one. So I'm doing a pilot with our mobile team over about almost 2 years ago, actually, and we're 2 in the morning. We're in the parking lot at a school. We're in Guatemala, of all places, so didn't have the certain luxuries of being at a U.S. installation facility, and we finally wrapped up. And we say, okay, it's done. We turn the bus off, and the cameras are still on. Everything's still recording. And we're walking around scratching our heads thinking, oh my goodness, what's going to happen if, you know, the bus driver gets here in the morning and the bus won't start and we killed the battery and the school's going to be angry with us and all this. So it's my long way of saying the system can be programmed to run for longer than the actual the engine being turned on. So if an end user, and I've heard this be requested quite a bit, where they want the cameras to record for 30 minutes after the vehicle is shut off, because that's when they have incidents with, you know, maybe their drivers doing things they shouldn't be doing, or other factors that come into play when the vehicle is parked in the depot yard or whatever it might be. So the system, and going back to what Naveed said about the battery and the power consumption and everything, if that battery and power configuration that you've used for your installation can support it, you can program our system to run for 30 minutes or an hour, or however length of time you would like and require the cameras to run after the vehicle's turned off. So it's all very customizable and programmable. You just need to make sure that from a power consumption perspective, we've got the ability for the cameras to run for X amount of time, and there be still enough juice in the battery to start the vehicle up the following day and to do what it normally does throughout its hours of operation.
Awesome. If there are no further questions, I'd like to thank the Dahua team for their presentation, and thank you to all of our attendees for sharing your valuable time with us this afternoon. As a reminder, a recording of this webinar will be available at esaweb.org in the resource library. Thank you all for participating, and enjoy the rest of your day.